Welcome to a new episode from English Plus Podcast. Today's episode is about word power, and we're going to learn 10 new words. We're going to learn circulate, daunting, derisive, dispute, motivate, proposition, radical, reprimand, stratagem, and unwavering, all in the context of the story of today about the 19th Amendment. So without further ado, let's start talking about the 19th Amendment, and after we finish our story, we will talk about these 10 words. So let's begin. The right of the citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or any state on account of sex. This hardly sounds like a radical idea. Could any reasonable person dispute the fairness of such a statement? It may be unthinkable now, but less than 100 years ago, this proposition was the subject of heated discussion. Even in the 19th century, women had few rights. Men ran their families and the government. Only men could buy and sell property. If they went to school at all, women were given only a basic education. The marriage vows required a woman to love, honor, and obey her husband. And the right to vote was limited to men. Change was painfully slow, but it finally came. The unwavering dedication of women like Elizabeth Stanton, Lucretia Mott, and Susan B. Anthony helped to motivate all women to seek justice. At an 1848 meeting held in Seneca Falls, New York, 68 women and 32 men signed a statement demanding women to be given equality with men. Still, getting the right to vote proved a daunting task. When they were allowed to speak in public, women were frequently exposed to derisive shouts from the audience. Newspapers and some churches reprimanded them for seeking to change the natural order of things. Even women slammed doors in the faces of those circulating petitions. Then the Civil War broke out, and the movement slowed to a near halt. A surprising event occurred after the war. The Wyoming Territory, where men outnumbered women by almost 10 to 1, granted women the right to vote. Some believe it was a stratagem to attract more women to the area, but whatever the reason, by 1896, 3 Western states had followed Wyoming's example. By 1917, 16 states had granted women the right to vote, but things seemed to stop there. A constitutional amendment was the only way to guarantee all women the right to vote. Such an amendment had been proposed for some 40 years, but it had never passed. In spite of an overwhelming number of petitions, it was defeated again in 1914. After President Wilson gave his support, the amendment was finally passed and sent to the states for approval in 1919. With Tennessee's approval in 1920, the 19th Amendment became the law of the land. So, that was our story about the 19th Amendment, and as you might have noticed, this might be second nature today. Nobody argues today, except for maybe very few countries around the world, that women have the right to vote. Of course, that's natural, but that wasn't natural about 100 years ago anywhere in the world. So we live in those times where women have the right to vote, but I do believe that there is still a long way for them to get all their rights. But we're not talking about women's rights today. That was the 19th Amendment, and the purpose we are here today is word power. We have 10 words that we want to talk about in context. And I will start with the very first word, and that is radical. Now, in the text I said, this hardly sounds like a radical idea. Now, I will say again what the idea is, which is actually the 19th Amendment. The right of the citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or any state on account of sex. So, whether a man or a woman, you have the right to vote. And that was the 19th Amendment, essentially. This hardly sounds like a radical idea. What is the meaning of radical idea? Radical, R-A-D-I-C-A-L. Radical changes and differences are very important and great in degree. So when we say a radical idea, it's like we're saying a revolutionary idea. So that was our first word, radical. The second word, dispute. Could any reasonable person, we were talking about today, could any reasonable person dispute the fairness of such a statement? Dispute. What is the meaning of dispute? Now, if you dispute a fact, statement, or theory, you say that it is incorrect or untrue. So that is the meaning of dispute. And here, what we said in the story, could any reasonable person dispute the fairness of such a statement? Could any person say that this is incorrect or untrue? Dispute, dispute. So that was our second word, dispute. Now for our third word, proposition. Now here we continued on and said it might be unthinkable now, but less than 100 years ago, this proposition was the subject of heated discussion. Now, what do we mean by proposition? Proposition. Proposition. So what is the meaning of proposition? We said this proposition was the subject of heated discussion. Well, a proposition is a statement or an idea which people can consider or discuss to decide whether it is true. In the United States, a proposition is a question or statement about an issue of public policy which appears on a voting paper so that people can vote for or against it. That is also a proposition. So it can be formal, like here, a statement that you have to vote for or against, or it can just be an offer or a suggestion. It can be used both ways. But here in our text, we have the proposition as a formal word, obviously. So that is proposition. Now let's move to the next word, unwavering. We talked about how things were in the 19th century. Men ran everything, families, government, etc. Women had few rights. And then change was painfully slow, but it finally came. The unwavering dedication of women like Elizabeth Stanton, Lucretia Mott, and Susan B. Anthony helped to motivate all women to seek justice. Now, what is the unwavering dedication? Now, we're talking about dedication. It is unwavering. It's an adjective. What do we mean by unwavering? And by the way, it is unwavering. But what is the meaning of unwavering? If you describe a feeling or attitude as unwavering, you mean that it is strong and firm and does not weaken, does not change, steady, consistent. That is unwavering. It's a very positive word, of course. Unwavering dedication of women like Elizabeth Stanton, Lucretia Mott, and Susan B. helped to motivate, that's our next word, motivate all women to seek justice. Motivate, motivate. What's the meaning of motivate? Now, if someone motivates you to do something, they make you feel determined to do it. It is like saying stimulate, drive, inspire, stir. So that is to motivate. And that's what the dedication of the women we mentioned did to motivate all women to seek justice. And now for our next word, daunting. daunting. We described getting the right to vote proved a daunting task. And you can guess we're not talking about an easy task here, right? A daunting task. What is the meaning of daunting then? Something that is daunting makes you feel slightly afraid or worried about dealing with it. That is daunting. It's intimidating, alarming, frightening, discouraging. That is daunting. And now for our next word, derisive. Now let's see how we used it in context first. When they were allowed to speak in public, women were frequently exposed to derisive shouts from the audience. So derisive shouts, like derisive noise, expressions, or remarks. What does that mean? But before, let's see how we can spell this word. derisive, derisive. Now, a derisive noise, expression, or remark expresses contempt. That is like saying mocking, ridiculing, jeering, taunting. That is derisive. And now for the next word, reprimand. Now we said newspapers and some churches reprimanded them. We're talking about women here, of course. Reprimanded them for seeking to change the natural order of things, as if it were the natural order of things at all. But at the time, that's what they believed. That's what most people believed. The natural order of things, that women should stay at home and men have all the rights in the world. That is what they believed. That's what most people believed back then. Even some women, by the way. That's what they believed was the natural order of things. But anyway, our word here, newspapers and some churches reprimanded. That's the word, reprimand, reprimand. Reprimand. What does that mean? Now, if someone is reprimanded, they are spoken to angrily or seriously for doing something wrong, usually by a person in authority. And that's what we said. Newspapers and some churches reprimanded women for seeking to change the natural order of things. They blamed them, they rebuked them, they reproached them. They didn't like it. Now, I know some of these facts might seem unnatural today, but they were natural back then. Natural order of things, right? So now for our next word, circulate. Now we said even women slammed doors in the faces of those circulating petitions. Now we had those petitions, they were circulating. We're using it here as an adjective, but circulate originally is a verb. Of course, that we can use as an adjective if we want. But here, if a piece of writing circulates or is circulated, copies of it are passed round among a group of people, for example. And that's what was happening in those petitions. Or if something such as a rumor circulates or circulated, the people in place tell it to each other. Now, here we're not talking about those petitions as a rumor, of course, but we're talking about the way it spreads. It was spreading. It was distributed. It was transmitted. Petitions circulating. And circulate, by the way, is circulate. Of course, circulating, ing, that's ting. Here we have circulating. And now for our very last word for today's episode, and that is stratagem. Now, here we said some believe we were talking about the Wyoming Territory and how they were the first to grant women the right to vote. But here we said that some believe it was a stratagem to attract more women to the area because at the time, men outnumbered women by almost 10-1 in the Wyoming Territory. So some believe it was a stratagem, stratagem. What is the meaning of stratagem? Now, you can guess the word strategy, right? The word strategy is more common, but stratagem is a word, of course, and we can use it. A stratagem is a plan that is intended to achieve a particular effect, often by deceiving people. So that is a stratagem. That's why it's different from strategy. Now, when we say strategy, we don't usually link it to deceiving people. But when we talk about stratagem, we're talking about something like a trick or a scheme or a maneuver, something like that. But it can also be just a plan, right? It can be only a plan that is intended to achieve a particular effect. But remember, often by deceiving people. And that is definitely a formal word to use. With this word, we come to the last of the 10 words that I wanted to share with you today. Let me remind you again what these words were. These words were circulate, daunting, derisive, dispute, motivate, proposition, radical, reprimand, stratagem, and unwavering. Now, I hope you found our story about the 19th Amendment interesting. I hope you learned something from the story, and definitely, I hope that you learned some new words with those 10 words. But remember, it's not just enough to listen to the episode. While we are very happy that you're here and you're listening, and you're still listening till the end of the episode, we're thrilled. But if you want to take it to the next level, if you want to practice the things you've learned, we got you covered. Take the link you can find in the description of the episode. It will take you to the custom post we created for this episode, and there you will find interactive exercises and a PDF downloadable worksheet you can download and practice these words. You don't have to practice them all in one day, but remember, you do a little bit every day so that you remember these words and add them to your active vocabulary bank. That's a very important thing. Words are very easy to forget. You don't want that. And if you practice them using our exercises, you will never forget those. And it's not only that, you will also be using them in your own writing and speaking. And that's what we all want, right? So I hope you take the link, go to our website, EnglishPlusPodcast.com, and make use of everything that we prepare for you. And there's another thing. There's also another link that will take you to our Patreon page. If you want to support English Plus, you can become a patron of English Plus. And by doing that, you will have our eternal gratitude, of course, but you will also get access to all our premium episodes. So if you would like to support us and get access to all our premium episodes, take the link, go to Patreon, and become a patron of English Plus today. Now, that being said, this is your host, Danny. I would like to thank you very much for listening to another episode from English Plus Podcast. I will see you next time.